So you're starting to get into home bartending, and you're wondering which cocktails should be shaken and which cocktails should be stirred. If that sounds like you, then this is the correct video for you. My name is Ron Virpin. I'm a full-time medical doctor, and I've been a home bartender for over 5 years now. During that time, I've learned how to make over 100 different cocktails and thrown over 50 cocktail parties. And now I teach other busy professionals how to make cocktails at home. In this video, I'm going to be answering that very important question that all beginner home bartenders and even some intermediate home bartenders have, which is which cocktails should be shaken and which cocktails should be stirred. So there is one main rule of thumb that I like to use, and this rule of thumb applies to almost all cocktails. And if you had to ask me off the top of my head, I would actually have a hard time trying to come up with an exception to this rule. And this rule of thumb is based on the ingredients that are in that cocktail. And in my opinion, it's actually easier to learn which ingredients require the cocktail to be shaken, and then you can use essentially the rule of exclusion or the exceptions to then go to the other category, which is stirred cocktails. So if a cocktail doesn't have one of those ingredients that must be shaken, then therefore it is a stirred cocktail. So let's start with the shaken cocktails then. If a cocktail recipe has ingredients in one of four main categories, then it must be a shaken cocktail. So let's go into those four categories one by one. The very first the very first ingredient that requires the drink to be shaken is fruit juices. And fruit juices applies primarily to lime juice and lemon juice, but honestly, this applies to all types of juices. So not only just lime and lemon, but it also applies to pineapple juice, orange juice, grapefruit juice, tomato juice, apple juice, really any juice you can think of. If the cocktail recipe has that juice in it, then the drink must be shaken. So that's category number one. Category number two of ingredients that must be shaken is going to be syrups. So this primarily means simple syrup, which is the most common type of syrup, but it also includes any type of syrup. So not only simple syrup, but also agave syrup, honey syrup, grenadine, orgeat, cinnamon syrup, passion fruit syrup, and so on and so forth. There's tens and tens of different syrups. If it is a type of syrup, then the drink must therefore be a shaken drink. So those are the first two categories. So category one, fruit juice. Category two, syrup. And then let's go on to category three of ingredient that must be shaken, and that is going to be egg. So that applies not just to whole eggs like in flip cocktails, but it also includes cocktails that use just the egg white, like the Pisco Sour or the Whiskey Sour or the Ramos Gin Fizz, which is one of my favorite cocktails. That cocktail is actually unique because it contains ingredients in all four of the categories that must be shaken. And it is even for that cocktail, the shaken process is quite famous and well known. And hopefully I'll do a video on that at some point in the future just to demonstrate that technique. So any drink that has egg, whether it's a whole egg or just the egg white, it must be shaken. And you can see why you're using a raw egg, so you must shake it in order to get some emulsification. Because the main reason you use egg, whether whole or just a white, is to add some texture. So you really have to shake it in order to get that texture. And this same kind of concept applies to the other two categories that I mentioned earlier. Fruit juices need shaking because shaking the cocktail adds some aeration, and that can lead to it forms nice bubbles that form on the top of your cocktail when you shake a drink that has a fruit juice. For example, the daiquiri, which has lemon juice, that's going to be not lemon juice, but lime juice. That's going to be a shaken drink, and when you end up pouring it out, it's going to have that nice wash line with that foam on top, the bubbles from shaking that lime juice. So that's why fruit juices must be aerated. Syrups must be aerated because they're so sticky and viscous that's the only way. Shaking a drink is the only way to really incorporate it with all the other ingredients equally. And then now we're in category three, which is eggs. Eggs need to be emulsified, and in order to get that real texture with eggs, whether whole egg or egg white, you have to shake the cocktail. And finally, the fourth category is going to be any type of dairy product. So primarily that's going to be heavy cream, like in the aforementioned Ramos Gin Fizz, but also things like the Brandy Alexander, which is another one of my favorite cocktails. And not just dairy, but also half and half. I would say this even applies to things, so coconut milk or cream of coconut. So when you're making painkiller or pina colada, that's going to require those coconut ingredients. So dairy applies to that as well, and any cocktail that has milk. So any form of dairy, whether it's half and half, heavy cream, milk, coconut milk, anything like that, that's going to require the drink to be shaken. And same reason to the other three categories. Shaking those type of ingredients is going to incorporate the ingredient better and really make sure that the texture is there when you shake the drink with those ingredients. So just to summarize, the 4 categories of ingredients that require the cocktail to be shaken as opposed to stirred is going to be number 1, fruit juices, number 2, syrups, number 3, eggs, and number 4, dairy. So if a cocktail does not have an ingredient in one of those 4 categories, then it is going to be a stirred cocktail. And what you're left with is the other ingredients, the ingredients that don't need the cocktail to be shaken. So if a cocktail does not have one of those other ingredients, then it can be stirred. So in order to be stirred, it has to have only ingredients that aren't in one of those 4 categories. So those ingredients are primarily going to be things like liquors, liqueurs, any type of wine product like vermouth or sherry. And then I would say the final category is really soda. Soda is not really stirred or shaken. Is something that's just added on to the end. And that soda includes any drink or any type of beverage that's carbonated. So that includes typical sodas, but also things like sparkling water or champagne as well. So that's the main principle. Let's go over a couple example cocktails and try to classify them in one category or the other. So we already went over the daiquiri. The daiquiri uses rum, lime juice, and simple syrup. So because it uses both simple syrup and lime juice, even if it just had one of those ingredients, it's going to have to be shaken because it contains a fruit juice and a syrup. And then we also talked about the Ramos Gin Fizz, which actually has ingredients in all 4 categories. It contains lime juice and lemon juice, which is category 1. It contains simple syrup, which is category 2. It contains egg white, which is category 3. And it contains heavy cream, which is category 4. So it actually contains ingredients in all 4 categories. Therefore, it has to be a shaken drink. So that's the Ramos Gin Fizz. And then the next example I'm going to talk about is the Manhattan. So the Manhattan has a type of whiskey, either bourbon or rye whiskey usually, which is a liquor. And then it has vermouth, which is a type of wine. And then it has bitters. So because it has those 3 ingredients and none of those ingredients are in category 1, 2, 3, or 4 of the shaken ingredients, then therefore the Manhattan is going to be a stirred cocktail. Another example of a stirred cocktail would be something like the Negroni. So the Negroni has gin, and then it has sweet vermouth, and then finally it has Campari. Campari is a liqueur, so it has a liquor, a vermouth, and a liqueur. Therefore, it's going to be a stirred cocktail. So these are just a couple of examples, and really, if you want to do some homework, you can try and find some other recipes. You can look through my channel and see the different recipes that I've posted about earlier, or you can pick whatever your favorite cocktail is or your favorite couple of cocktails, and then decide, does it have one of the ingredients that requires it to be shaken, which are fruit juice, syrup, egg, and dairy. If it requires one of those, it's going to be shaken. If it does not have any of those ingredients in the ingredient list, then it's going to be a stirred cocktail. So anyways, I hope you found this video helpful. This is something that I definitely wish I had known earlier on in my journey because it really helps you categorize the different types of cocktails into the 2 main techniques, shaken and stirred. And you will never really have this question again because it's so hard to keep all these. Once you learn so many recipes, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I know over 100 different recipes. Once you start to learn so many, it becomes difficult to just based on pure memorization. Is this shaken or is it stirred? So if you understand this principle that I laid out in this video of which ingredients require the cocktail to be shaken and which ingredients, if it has only those ingredients, it can be stirred. If you know that basic principle, then you don't have to memorize, is this a stirred cocktail or is this a shaken cocktail? So instead of just purely memorizing, just learn this principle that I laid out in this video and it will help you guys a lot out in your home bartending journey. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. If you found the video helpful, please subscribe to the channel. I really like to do 2 types of videos on this channel. One will be like this type of video where I give tips, tricks, advice, and share stories from my own home bartending journey that I feel will help you guys become the best home bartenders that you can be. And then the other type of video is where I do tutorials on how to make specific cocktails. Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you. Cheers.